We'll call this meeting of the Craven County Board of Commissioners regular session for Monday, January 3rd, 2022 to order. Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner McKay?
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell? Here. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Liner?
Here.
Commissioner Mark?
Here.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Here.
Chairman Jones?
Here. If you will, please let's stand together as we salute and pledge to the American flag, which will be followed by a prayer from our county attorney. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious and life-giving God, we come before you this day in the warm afterglow of the holiday season, after joyful gatherings with friends, family members, and other loved ones, and after a time for recalling the blessings we have received. We are mindful and grateful for the many gifts you have bestowed on us, both as individuals and as a nation and as a county, especially the gift of freedom, the gift of our abundant natural resources, and the gift of opportunities to pursue our hopes and aspirations. We pray for your continued blessings on our county and on those in positions of leadership and governance, especially this Board of County Commissioners. Bless all its members with wisdom and understanding to discern how best to serve the people of this county and these United States, to promote the common good, to provide for our county's security, and to work for justice and peace for all people. Amen.
Amen. We want to welcome each of you here this evening to Craven County Board of Commissioners meeting. For those that may be viewing online, I would ask that those in attendance this evening, if you have your cell phones with you, if you will, please make sure they're on vibrate or cut off. We would appreciate that. The first item, Commissioners, that we have this evening is the approval of the agenda. There is one item that I would ask that we would pull, and that would be number 4, the Coastal Community Action Community Services Block Grant presentation. We will not have that presentation this evening, so please pull that. Are there any other items that Commissioners desire to pull or add to the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda minus item number 4.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hear none. All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Next item is the petition of citizens for agenda topics. Mr. Vice Chair, do we have any citizen desiring to speak?
We have nobody signed up.
All right. We do want to give one more opportunity for anyone that may have come in that did not sign up, any citizen desiring to speak on agenda topics to the Board of Commissioners this evening. All right. Hearing none, seeing none, we will move on to item 2, which will be the consent agenda. I will ask also under the consent agenda that we would pull A, which would be the minutes of the December 20th, 2021 meeting. There were some items that were left out of those minutes pertaining to the COLA that was discussed at the end of the meeting, so we will ask that they be brought back to the board at the next meeting for approval. You have there the tax releases and refunds. The sheriff has a budget amendment, and then economic development, a request to set a public hearing for Project Tiger 2. Are there any other items to pull?
So moved.
Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes, thank you. Next, we have with us Mr. Alan Thompson with Thompson Price Scott Adams and Company, PA, and he will give us the 2021 audit presentation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Craig is passing out the audit presentation. I think it's on the screen as well. I think I got a good report, which is great news. If you would be kind enough to flip over to the first page there, you see the kind of the agenda, the layout there, and then the audit, the basic financials. Then you see the MD&A, the government-wide statements, the fund financial statements, the notes to the financial statements, and then the required supplementary information. And the main thing you as a board hire us to do is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. There's 4 types of opinions, and we issued an unmodified report, which is a quote-unquote clean report. It's the highest level of assurance. So that's good for the county, good for the board, and good and reflects positive on everybody involved. The next item there is simply the opinion there. Everything is good. The next slide just simply says that management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies, accounting estimates, etc. All that was great. Next slide, there were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit, no uncorrected misstatements, and no disagreements with management. The next slide, the management team did provide us with a representation letter dated November 23rd, and then we're unaware that management consulted any outside accountants, auditors, etc. And then the next slide. Other findings, issues, etc. On the bottom there, you see the last 3 paragraphs, a few items of note, but nothing serious, anything in here. The financials were great. There's a few items that were technical findings that we'll talk about in just a second from a compliance standpoint. No cost or dollars associated with them, just technical issues. We'll get to that in just a moment. Next slide. This is just verbiage here, to be honest with you. I do want to talk to you on the next slide there, if you will. We'll go into a little bit more detail, but if you've ever allocated resources to the finance on this standard that's coming up for the June 30, 22 audit, I would really encourage you to be prepared that GASB 87, whether we like it or not, or think it's a great thing or not, it's going to require some serious effort to get there. The Local Government Commission started probably 6 months to a year ago, encouraging everybody to get involved. And nationwide, there are several companies that's even started up to help local governments get there. But basically, every lease the county has that's over 12 months has to be accounted for in the financial statements and treated as an asset if it's over 12 months with an associated liability.
You say every lease?
Every lease. Every single lease, whether it's 2 or if the county was leasing an asset to a third party, or the county was leasing an asset from a third party. Every one of them has to be accounted for. And it gets to be very tedious. Somebody's got to read all the documents, ensure that it's going to be recorded properly, etc. So it's a lot of work somebody's going to have to go through. So,
Excuse me, that was after 1 year?
I'm sorry, sir.
That was after 1 year?
Yes, sir. If the lease is longer than 12 months, you're correct, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, are we going to have to do this every year, or is this one and done?
Oh, it's not one and done.
Good Lord. Wish.
But it's like a lot of other things. The key year is going to be June 30, 22, because you've got, going forward, you'll have accumulated all the data, and you'll just add and subtract from that data. But the first year to get it all right is going to be a lot of work.
Mr. Thompson, if I may, if we just stop right here. Craig, if you want to come forward. I think we've already, with our new software, we are already have it.
If the board will recall during budget, we did allocate some resources towards the software that will help us with the implementation. So we're actually currently implementing that right now as we speak. So.
And you feel confident that you're going to be prepared for the timeline?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions for Craig while he's right here from the board?
Just remember, we also did that for the airport.
Yeah, the airport.
150 for the airport.
Yeah, it was. We found a unique requirement for FAA where there's some of those leases, hangar leases didn't fall under the standard, which we later learned, as we started getting into all the details. But we are well on our way to implementing.
Jack, you
guys.
got anything you want to add on that?
Craig had some great forethought last spring to go ahead and get started using, along with the accountant firm, so I'm happy we're there.
All right, Commissioner, Ms. Smith,
Is
Commissioner.
there a limit to the time of a lease?
The attorney may have something on how long a county may, if he has anything. I'm not aware of a term limit yet, but there might be something that.
No, ma'am, there's not a limit. Depending on the length of the lease, may dictate the process that the board would have to go through to approve it, but I've seen leases that are 100 years long.
All right, we good? All right, thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Thompson, but I thought that was a good stopping point
I
there.
think it's excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Allows me to skip a few pages here and get to the financial information. So if you would go to the next slide, which is the financial information for 5 years. And so you can see there, we don't attempt to say that we're pulling out every key number in the audit report, but we're hoping we're pulling out some of the key numbers so that you can take a look at it, and you can also put it in context. It's not just sitting there, a fund balance of $50 million. What has it been for the last 4 years? So you get a feel for it as a trend, and it's not just a number in space, if you will. So you can see total fund balance on the top line at $50,080,000. If you go back 5 years to 17, you can see it was $35,941,000. It's had some variations in between. Unavailable fund balance.
I hate to keep interrupting.
No, sir, fine.
To the public watching at home, the word fund balance may not be, so can you just elaborate, what is a fund balance? I know what it is, but many people may not.
Fund balance is basically assets over liabilities, except for in the general fund, you don't count long-term debt. You'd have to go to government-wide financial statements, which is in Exhibit 1 and 2. The state of North Carolina governs every local government entity's financial strength by fund balance. It's how you budget. It's how you manage the finances of the county as well. It's,
A simple way to say it, it's not exact, but it's a savings account in many ways.
Reserve.
correct.
Excess money over what our expenses are going to be for the year,
Or have been.
or have been.
Historically, yes, sir. And we'll talk about some of the details, how that fund balance of $50 million may be broken out into what the state measures as its lowest acceptable, or what is you may have set as a policy as a board in that as well.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. I see it's 50,000 and it jumped from 39,000 and million, and it jumped from 39 to 50. Is that due to the sales tax?
There's a lot of factors in it. We as a firm do about 25 of the 100 county audits. Most counties had a big jump. It can vary a lot, and I don't remember right off the top, but the CARES Act did play a role in it. And I would suspect you'll probably have another bump next year because of some of the ARBA funds that you got that are going to offset some other expenses. So it's, I don't want to.
Some of it was money reimbursed from money we had spent for the hurricane claim.
Yes, if you look back, I mean, not to get too far ahead of the presentation, but in 20, we outlaid a lot of fund balance as we were going through some of our hurricane projects, and then we started to recoup some of that. But yes, a lot of it, the excess fund balance.
From the sales tax.
We've had a really good year on sales tax, property tax, performed really well this year, and also the CARES Act funds that we got back last year.
Okay.
We had CARES Act in the health department, for the county, in the general government section. You know, we allocated out towards the fire and rescue districts. We shared some of that with them and the municipality. So
When we're talking FEMA,
we're talking a combination of
$4.5
all
million.
those, of all those things led to that increase.
So then you can see the next line there is unavailable fund balance or non-spendable 16.4. The available fund balance, 33,605,000. Restricted is 16,916,000, and unassigned at $33,164,000. Total general fund expenditures, including transfers out, was $118 million. Fund balance available as a percentage at 28.24, and that's what I was saying earlier. That's the percentage that the local government commission measures. Yes, sir. And then fund balance unassigned as a percentage is 27.87. If you'd be kind enough to flip the slide for me. Revenues over and under expenses before transfers and contributions for major funds is $15,783,000, and the general fund capital reserve fund is $10,000. Grant project fund is a minus $502. The water fund was a positive $163,472. Depreciation expense in the water fund is $1,680,666. And then the enterprise funds, net position versus cash, you can see net investment in capital assets is $26,347,000. The unrestricted net position at $13 million, and total net position is $39,377,000. Cash at $13,527,000. I know you know this, and I'm just really saying it out loud. Net position in any enterprise fund is great, but what you're really looking for is cash flow in enterprise funds, because you're not going to sell. You usually have a big net position, but what you're really after is cash flow in order to pay all the debt, make sure the customers are paying the correct amount, etc. You can see your property tax rates there for all 5 years. Collection percentage, which Craig mentioned, at 99.23, excluding motor vehicles at 99.13. Then you see the property valuation across the board and the levy across the board as well. Next slide, if you will, please. I'm not going to read all the numbers on this page, but you can see the breakdown of general fund revenues by department, if you will, and the same thing is true of breakdown by general fund expenditures. So it's a good analytical tool to take a look at, I would say that. And then next slide. You can see analysis of fund balance in the general fund, total in blue, available in red, and unassigned in green. And you can see where it's obvious that the total fund balance this year is much higher than any of the previous 4 years presented. Next slide, if you will. And then you can see analysis of fund balance available and unassigned as a percentage of general fund expenditures. You can see available as a percentage in blue, unassigned in red, and state average in green. And all we have is last year for state average. And then if you'd be kind enough to flip over to the collection percentages, you can see where the county in blue is doing quite well at 99.23%. And if you'd be kind enough to flip over to the pie chart, and this may have been what you alluded to earlier, and I think this speaks well for the county as a whole. When you look at ad valorem taxes, 43.07, intergovernmental revenue, which is where, and then sales tax at 16.98. The broader you can make that, the better you are. We've got many counties who are 50% on ad valorem tax, so the broader you can make your revenue base, the better off you are. And then you can see on the next slide, general fund revenues by source. And with the key there on the bottom, you can see ad valorem taxes at $55 million, sales tax at 22, intergovernmental revenue at 33 million, sales and services 17, and then the others. The next page shows you breakdown of your general fund expenditures, and education being the largest, then public safety, and then social services, then general government. And then if you flip the slide for me as well, and then this just simply shows the dollar amount here by segment. If you'd flip the slide for me as well, and what I was mentioning earlier, sir, this does a decent job breaking down what your total fund balance is, some of the categories inside of it. And when we looked at the earlier amounts, fund balance available and fund balance unassigned, you can see the unassigned amount But the stabilization by state statute and public safety basically are in receivables, et cetera, so those amounts can't be counted as or available. So that's why the state is really looking at liquidity, is what it amounts to from that available fund balance. Be kind enough to flip to the next slide. Again, not only did you get an unmodified report on the financial side, but you got an unmodified report on all the compliance. There's several opinion letters in the back regarding the federal and state awards, grants, and all those received unmodified reports. Next slide, if you will, please, sir. These are the 4 deficiencies I talked about. All 4 of these are technical findings. And we've addressed them in the audit report. There's actually a response to each of them, but there's no question cost, which means no money involved. So, and there was an action plan to remediate those 4 issues there as well. GASB 84, which is in the current financial statements for many years. Taking the time and read through the audit report, there's been something called agency funds in the audit. Those agency funds, quote, went away, and basically what you ended up with was fiduciary funds. The fiduciary funds, for the most part, really involved the collection of property taxes that the county does for other local government entities in the county. And then on the DSS side, that particular fund was switched over to a special revenue fund. The only other fiduciary fund really that you had was the inmate fund at the jail. So that it's more of an accounting issue than it is probably something that you're focused on. Okay. And then we got a report earlier on the last page on GASB 87 where y'all are doing a great job getting prepared for it. The Finance Department did a really good job in terms of getting us information. The unmodified report reflects positively on them, on you as a board, management, and all the department heads, so we really appreciate that. We appreciate you allowing us to do the audit. If you got questions any time of us, please, not just tonight, but anytime, please feel free to give me a call. If I happen not to be in the office, tell them to give you my cell phone number, track me down, I'll get you an answer to your question.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right, questions from the Board of Commissioners? Jack, you got any comments?
I don't. I think Mr. Thompson and his group, they did a great job, worked well with us. And Craig, we were just talking at dinner. This was the 31st straight year they won the Government Finance Officers Award for their work in finance here in Craven County. I'm really proud of all our finance staff. They all do a great job, and particularly Craig's leadership downstairs. Thank you, Craig.
The only thing I will add for the citizens of Craven County, when we began budget discussions this past year, our board was looking at the what ifs, with the economy, and we were expecting a different story, than what you've reported from the previous year. And even in the prior budget year was the same thing. Sales tax has been awesome. I don't know no other way to put it. Our collection rate is good. The citizens of this county have come and they've paid their bills. And we are in a good standing, probably the best financial standing, I would say, in my lifetime that I think that the county is in. We experienced through Hurricane Florence, we saw firsthand that it's good to have a savings account because we knew what we went through if we did not have this fund balance sitting there. We're still working on, at the present time, trying to get reimbursement from the federal government on some buildings that we have here. And so, the question that always comes into my mind, and it does everybody's mind, how much is enough, We are required by the state to have, 8%?
That's right.
And which we are there. I think now the question I would ask you is, I think you had us at about 28% in our fund balance overall. Is that somewhat around the state average now, or we had failed just a little below that because of Hurricane Florence, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
And so, you may not be able to remember, but do you think we're back around the state average now?
You're closer, and I would say this, and this, I've got an opinion. It may not mean a whole lot, but getting to state average is healthy, but because of your location and what you may have higher risk, probably wouldn't hurt to be slightly above that because of what you experience, and that's the challenge I think you, as a board, face in trying to not overburden citizens, but at the same time be prepared in case something happens too. Because as you've seen, and we've seen this across the board because we do a lot of coastal areas, getting reimbursed from FEMA sometimes, it's not like sending in next week you get the money back. It is a process to get the money. So that's my opinion for what it's worth.
Any other comments from the board?
No.
Not, again, thank you. We appreciate you being
Thank
here
you.
this evening. Thank you.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Craig, you got anything else, buddy? All right, appreciate what you do. Departmental matters, item 5 would be social services. Mr. Jeffrey Merritt has 2 presentations. Thank you, sir. How you doing?
Chairman, fine. Thank you, Commissioners, County Manager. In our last meeting in December, you asked me to come back and give a presentation on a new program that we have been administering since December 1st, 2021. That's the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program. I'm just going to call it LIWAP. So if you hear me say that, I won't say that whole title. So some of the information, I'm not going to. Next slide, please. Sorry if I forget that. So our first slide is just a general information as to what this program does. We spoke about it last month, but typically it will provide a one-time payment for eligible households, and it runs through September 2023 until our funds are exhausted.
Thank you.
Yes, that's in the presentation too. Next slide, please. Just some general items of whether you were eligible or not. Remember, we talked about 3-party groups that we'll talk more about in this presentation. But if your water has been cut off, or if you've received notice that your services are in danger of being cut off, then you may be eligible. So that would mean please contact our office, 252-636-4900, and I'll talk more about ways to apply. Next slide, please. So here's some of here's the eligibility requirements. The income level, less than 150% of the federal poverty level. We'll have those rates in just a minute. And we spoke about the disconnection or in jeopardy of being disconnected, and you are responsible for the water bill. Next slide, please. In December, we spoke about being categorically eligible, and this is as you can see there, it lists some services that if households that are currently receiving those through the dates of October 1st, 2020 and September 30th, 2021, it would mean that those eligibility requirements for LIWAP and these other programs, food nutrition services, temporary assistance for needy families, or work first services, or they received low-income energy assistance through that program during that time, then they would automatically meet the eligibility requirements for this program. So therefore, we would be able to match them up through our system. And if they meet those other eligibility requirements, then we talked about the disconnect or in danger of disconnect or just need of assistance of their water bill, the 3-party groups, then they would be eligible for assistance. If it's before September of 2023 or if we still have funds available. Next slide, please. I got this as big as I could. My skills of putting graphs on PowerPoints aren't the best. So, but this is the 150% federal poverty level income limits. If you'll see that, that first number is the eligible in household, the number eligible in household countable income. So it goes from one person in the household, $1,610 a month, all the way up to 26, $15,798. So That may be overshooting the mark a little bit, but that's what they gave us on the graph, so I was going to give you all the information that we had. So,
By the way, this is all mandated anyway, so.
yeah, these are established by the federal governments, and of course, when households come in and apply for assistance, we do have to look at different types of incomes and expenses, which we count as countable income.
I'm trying to interpret this chart.
Sorry.
So if I read this correctly, for a household of 4,
Right.
then that would be $3,300 a month,
Yes, a month.
so roughly $39,000 a year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that $39,000 a year, that's 150.
150%. That's the maximum that, if they make anything more than that, then they wouldn't be eligible. So if you had a household of 4 and you took all their countable income, it was $3,314, then we wouldn't be able to administer the benefit. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Now, you consider the income plus the situation, is that correct? If, for example, if I am low income, if I am receiving that $1,800, $810 as an individual,
Yes.
I can't come to you and say, I want you to pay my electric bill this month because I'm low income. I must be struggling to pay the electric bill
Well, you must be
or my water bill or whatever.
With this program, Commissioner Smith, we have those 3 priority groups, and one is if you are in cutoff status, then you would be eligible if you met the income requirements. If you,
I wouldn't have to have a situation. If I met the income requirement, I would qualify
right.
for a one-time payment.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the amounts of what we said, yes. Yeah. This isn't like our crisis intervention program, where if someone came to us and that's our heating and cooling assistance, one of our 3 energy programs, where if they came to us and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay my utility bill, well, first thing we would ask is, well, you have to be in what's considered a crisis, and that is you have to have a cutoff notice. Because that's what the policy has to kind of draw a line in the sand, so to speak, about what defines what a crisis is.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we may have people come to say, well, I'm not going to be able to pay my bill this month, and we'll say, well, we need to see what your cutoff notice. And if they can't provide a cutoff notice, we have to say, well, you technically haven't entered in a crisis yet. When you get that cutoff notice, then that would deem you in crisis per policy, and then we would look and see if they met eligibility requirements in that program. But in this one, it's eligible for a one-time payment, up through September 2023, just if you meet the eligibility requirements.
Thank you.
Commissioner Liner.
Explain to me, eligibility, household must have at least one U.S. citizen or a non-citizen.
Where'd you see that at?
Eligible to receive.
So,
Yeah, go back 2 slides.
2 slides.
Next one. Yeah, there we go.
Household must have at least one. And, well, I'll tell you,
Citizen or non-citizen?
Commissioner Liner, the policy that they were given to us, that's at least or one U.S. citizen or non-citizen. That's what the federal government gave to us as the policies. I had to get a little bit more information on that because I would think that the
Please
U.S.
do.
Yeah, I will, yeah.
I'd like to know what I know what a non-citizen is, but I mean, why are... Oh, my
A
gosh.
citizen or a non-citizen just means anybody.
Yeah,
Well, but a household of
legal or
one-
non-legal?
Right.
Household of 1 with a monthly income of $1,810,
Wouldn't be eligible.
well, let's say $1,800.
Okay.
That's 1610, isn't it? 1610?
Yes.
1610,
Sorry.
yeah.
1610.
Yes, ma'am.
So at 1,600, well, they're either a citizen or they're not. I mean,
Makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
no.
We've had a lot of questions about this program and the implementation of it and some of the policy questions. I think we told you last time it was rolled out pretty quickly, and there's about they did a frequently asked questions document and I'm trying to think how many pages long it is, and so I don't know if all of them were answered, but I'll get that information back to you.
Thank you.
We were on the eligibility limits slide.
Priority groups.
Yeah, priority groups, yes, that's it. Thank you, Steve. So these are the priority groups we spoke about last time, and I mentioned a little bit more. Groups 1 and 2, we tried to give first service to in December, and now in January, Group 3 is eligible to apply. So we have opened it up to all households, essentially in Craven County, whose vendors had done what they needed to do in order to receive the funds, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Next slide, please. I've just spoken about that. Everyone being eligible and beginning January 1st can apply for assistance. Next slide, please. So these are some options on how to apply. Individuals can go to that website listed in the first bullet and print off an application, and can either mail it to our P.O. box, or they can fax it to the number there, or drop it off at Craven County DSS. You can either come to the window, or we have a drop box outside that you can come and drop it off at, and we can check that multiple times a day. Or you can come and ask to apply in person at our address, or you can do it solely online through the ePass link that's in the third bullet. Next slide, please. The benefit amounts, priority groups 1 and 2. The amount needed to restore services, we spoke about that last time. So, if someone in priority group 1 or 2 came in and we found out that there was, I'm just going to say thousands of dollars, $6,000 that they would need to restore services, and they were eligible and we had the money, we would pay it. Priority group 3, who are not disconnected or in danger of disconnection and meet the eligibility requirements solely, there would be a maximum payment of $600. Next slide, please. So I'm going to add a couple things to these updates. I've got some of the latest numbers. These are what I had at the time that was needed for the agenda submission. So the data match, the state only there was about 117, and when I speak about the data match, we worked with the vendors and asked them to give us names of households and identify information about those who were either in cutoff status or in danger of cutoff status, groups 1 and 2. And so essentially they were supposed to send those to the state first. The state couldn't get the Zix mail set up, so then they sent it to us, and we securely sent it to the state. And the state was going to try to data match those on the categorically eligible. And essentially all that information was in our NC FAST system for FNS and WorkFirst. Well, there was 117 households given by the vendors in Craven County, and the state was only able to do 6. And we were able to get a couple more, but so that process didn't bear the fruit that we thought it would be, to where we would have to not have as much work on our department. So we're still going through those lists and seeing if we can find out any more information. Maybe there was some information that wasn't sent through, or maybe there was a transposed number or something, to where we can try to get those households matched up, categorically eligible. We've only received 5 applications outside of priority groups 1 and 2, and when I talk to some other colleagues throughout the state, there hasn't been a big demand for this program yet. I don't understand why. I mean, I know there's a lot of aid out there right now, but we could see that start picking up more in the January months. I will say that when they did the public service announcements for this program, the state, it was done pretty close to the December start date. So that could have some implications. There may not be a lot of local knowledge about it. I spoke about us continually try to see if others are categorically eligible as well. And we will also kind of if someone comes and applies in group 3, or they come in later and they were initially supposed to be in group 1 or 2, we'll see if they're categorically eligible as well. And if they're not, we will process that application to see if they meet eligibility requirements. Next slide, please. You want to know about some of the challenges that we have. We have 3 temporary workers we normally get for our low-income energy assistance program. That's our that's essentially equivalent to our heating program or one-time payment. So on this unit, they also administer numerous other programs, and this is another program they'll administer: Workforce Employment Services, Workforce Eligibility Services. We talked about the LEAP program and our Crisis Intervention program. So, next slide, please. Some of the other challenges that we have, we talked about the policy. There's still a lot of questions out there. It was completed about and disseminated to us about a month before the program went out. There was webinars, there was many questions and clarifications, and when we went to the state, there was, I guess, difficulty sometimes getting some clarification on the policies with some of the questions asked. And the concern about that is, we just heard from our auditor, this may be a program that they want to audit, and with getting policy and that amount of time for a program and sending questions back and waiting for answers from over 100 counties, sometimes we don't get as much clarity as we need in regards to making sure that if there is a question on eligibility that may be very unique that wasn't covered in those, which is a possibility, is that something that we're going to be able to accurately determine, or is it going to delay and someone else get benefits because we're going to have to ask the state, to give us some clarification on an application, and we're supposed to have these applications processed within a certain amount of time. Yes, Commissioner Smith.
If I'm understanding you correctly, you're stating that you're having a problem with clarity as to who's eligible for the program?
Well, I wouldn't, overall, no, I think the policy gives most of that, but some unique situations, sometimes we have some issues with clarity. There may be some unique situations with some household compositions, or, there may be some very unique situations with income eligibility that wasn't thought about in the policy, and then that you kind of have to kick that back up, and, that answer kind of gets bounced around, and you may not get an answer in as timely as fashion as you would need be.
The second part of my question is, if you have questions, how would the client know if they qualify? The people that you're serving, how would they know? And is it for only the people that you're serving, or for the general public? How would we know as public citizens?
I would say that priority group, Commissioner Smith. This program is open to any citizen whose vendor has done what they needed to do to enroll in the vendor system and set up as a water vendor. And I'll talk about that in just a minute because I have the latest update there. But yeah, anyone could come and apply. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be eligible.
I mean, but you'd have to know that it's available to apply, I would think.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? All right.
Fine. Next slide. I was going to talk about allocation. We did have some, December 1st was when the program began, and those funds weren't made available until the 23rd, and I think your last meeting was about a week before that. And so it was pretty difficult to get those funds in our budget to be able to start cutting checks before then. And I imagine if it was in Craven County, it was probably the same instances throughout the remainder of the county, remaining counties. Next slide, please. So this is where we talk about the press release. The press release went out the day before the program was set to begin. So there's Commissioner Smith, how individuals are supposed to know. Data matching, I talked about that a little bit. We got the data matching results the day before it started. So that really didn't give us a lot of time to maybe get through some of those questions, or if there was any confusion there with the vendors or someone who was listed on that data matching sheet. Next slide, please. I remember I spoke previously about how we would data match those clients. NC Fast is our technology system that stores and houses all that information for a lot of our public assistance programs that individuals who received during the time frame in the previous slide where we would go and look to see if they data match. Well, we were initially told we had to do that outside of NC Fast, which is our only way of being able to determine if they got those services. But eventually clarification was sent to us about how to generate payments for individuals. So that was that was one that confused us greatly. So I kind of wanted to let you know that this is kind of some of the bumps that we're running into, and trying to make sure we get clarity in how we accurately, determine eligibility and administer this program. Next slide, please. So as you see, the first bullet point, in order to generate payments through NC Fast, there has to be money uploaded in the system. So on December 1st, there was not any money uploaded into the system until December 3rd. So that put us 2 days behind trying to work and getting payments out to vendors who were in our system. So the next, on December 3rd, 2 days after we started, the question and answer document I talked to you about acknowledging inconsistencies, and they were going to have to give us a revised document, which I think they did within the week. On the next bullet, December 3rd, issues with key and categorically eligible applications in NC Fast, which that's where we enter applications into for public assistance programs. A job aid is something that assists counties in working in the system. So that had to be issued at a later date. So again, you're looking at days that have already passed prior to the program rolling out, where we're having issues being able to put information into the system for it. I'll give you a real brief thing here about day sheets or non-DSS, is that we have to account for all of our time in 5-minute increments, and to pull down revenue doing that, we have to bill that time. I want to look at our county attorney and tell him billing time, but we have to bill that time to certain programs, and it put for administrative time, and that pulls down federal and state revenue that offsets county dollars. So when I came in and Commissioner Mitchell asked me what that $30,000 was for in addition to the $160, well, that was the admin time. So when we put 30 minutes and we put the program code there in our day sheet system, it helps pull down that $32,000 to make sure that we get all of our money. And we have to do this each day. And we need a day sheet code to be able to do that. Well, as you can see, that didn't come until December 6th, and the program started December 1st, and we were doing work in it. So that was another challenge that it was, because workers typically, we try to encourage to keep up with your time each day. There probably has to be some that you come finish off the next day, just so it doesn't get behind, because, I don't know about you when you're working, sometimes days get so busy and you start trying to remember what you did 3 or 4 days ago. It's tough. But this was just another thing where if they kept time, they would have to mark it, keep it, instead of just being able to go ahead and put in our day sheet system, move on. The other challenges to vendor portal, water vendors. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you an update, a little bit more of an update here, but initially we were, in our low-income energy assistance program, initially we were told that there only needed to be a paper vendor agreement signed. So the state develops this agreement, we work with our vendors, and they look at the vendor agreement, they sign it, and what that is, their customers now eligible to receive the assistance, because we had to have that vendor agreement. We were later received instructions that the vendor needed to key their own agreement into what's called a vendor portal. So those instructions went out, but there was issues that our staff worked with our vendors in order to try to make sure they were accurately keyed in, because they have to be, you can't just be keyed in as a utility vendor. You have to be keyed in as a utility vendor, or you have to be keyed in as a water vendor. So just for instance, if there's a municipality or a county that, I know counties don't do a lot of utilities, but mainly municipalities that do utilities and water, and they bill for them both, you can't just put it all under utility. You have to put it under utility and water. So eventually, we were able to get all our vendors entered into the portal by December 17th. We do have one vendor that's outstanding we've been working with, the city of New Bern. We've given them instructions. Jack and I actually had a conversation with the manager today, trying to help them to go ahead and be able to key in their information to the portal, so we can work with them in this program as well. And I think that should happen fairly soon. Holly and Tromley, who's our supervisor, has been working closely with their utility department to try to work that out. Next slide, please. I will, the staff on Holly and Trombley's team and her and Deborah Walker, the program administrator, they understand that this program is something that will assist individuals who need it. We try to always look at the positives with this. While it is another program that we have to find to fit in our 40-hour week, in addition to others, it is something that we have, looked at our business processes to where we'll be able to do that. So, they're working as hard as they can to administer these benefits to the citizens of Craven County.
All right, any further questions? Commissioner Liner.
Jeff, this is good, but I guess it boils down to, you've only got 5 applications, 5 people you're processing right now.
Outside of the categorically eligible ones in the list we have, yeah. We've got our categorically eligible, we've been able to match now 35 of 120 names.
35 plus the 5, so we got 40 people we're serving with this.
Yes, sir.
State's helping you out a lot, aren't they?
We just hope there would have been a little bit better rollout of this with not as with the timelines I think that you've seen. This program has been being talked about, since the summer. And you think that, and I know they've got to work with the federal government too, but you think 4 or 5 months before that we wouldn't be getting to where you would need something as simple as a day sheet code 5 days after December 1st, or the public service announcement doesn't go out to November 30th, or we don't have the money uploaded on December 1st. So I know they talked about the budget and things such as that, but those are some challenges that you see that you have to kind of work around when you're implementing a program like this.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
I apologize for asking so many questions, but I do
have,
I have another question.
Ask as many as you want.
Okay. Now, you said that they have to keep time in 5-minute increments. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, our day sheets. Yeah, we're North Carolina's on 100% reporting.
So when they make all these contacts that you've said, like 100 and some attempts to get 5 people, and they've got to document every 5 minutes that they.
Well, no, not every 5 minutes. If there was if it takes 30 minutes to take an application, they'll do 30 minutes. I mean, it's just up to 400.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, like for instance, in our other programs in child welfare, when I was a child welfare worker and I went day sheet and I had to do a home visit, it took 120 minutes to drive there, do the interview, and then drive back. Then I would just put 120
So it was 125.
minutes.
You just say 125 minutes.
Right. Yeah, just put 120
Okay.
instead of putting 5 minutes down. Whatever equals up to 120, that's 24, something like that.
I was about to think it's taking most of their time to document what they were.
Well, documentation is something
There's
that
a lot
is a challenge.
lot of work in that. Yeah.
All right, any additional questions on this? Yes, sir.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Just for clarification, this is good for anybody in the county, not just county water customers, but City of New Bern, any municipality that has water.
Right. If you're with a water vendor, you're eligible. Right now, we're just waiting for City of New Bern to get their water vendor in the vendor portal, and then they'll be eligible as well, and we'll start working with them. We do have we spent about $4,760 so far out of $161,145, and we expect another pot of money to be coming down. So we will be probably coming back with a budget amendment when we get that to add money to this program.
The only other thing I ask, out of those 40, I mean, how many do you know that are Craven County water customers? Do you have any idea?
Right now, the categorically eligible ones I spoke with you about, the 35 of those 120 names were Craven County water and sewer. So that we've been able to do out of those 120 names.
Okay.
So the rest of the 4 were City of Havelock.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? All right. Hearing none, let's move to the next one. Thank you for that information you provided. Next would be COVID CARES Act funding, a budget amendment of $41,190.
So we received additional revenue for administrative time for the low-income energy assistance programs. I think I remember last year when I came and we did a budget amendment because we got additional funding for low-income energy assistance. With COVID, there was additional admin dollars throughout the state, and typically on these programs, admin dollars don't meet the need to administer it, so the counties have to make up the rest. But with our build time, the state went back and had money that wasn't allocated or used in the pot. So what they did, they went through counties, and those that overspent gave them more money. So this is what this is. This $41,190 in additional revenue that was unbudgeted. So.
All right, what's the desire of the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendment, $41,190. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Next item is Sheriff Chip Hughes. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. I hope everybody had a quiet New Year's.
I did.
Except for the party you threw downtown New Bern. In the county, though, relatively, we had a fairly quiet, uneventful New Year's, and I'm very thankful for that. I've got two items I need to bring before you for your consideration. The first one is a truck, a Ford F-150 2020 model, that was donated by two very generous people in our county that have a special interest in our Canine Bureau. And we're requesting approval of the commissioners to approve the truck into our current fleet, and as well as any registration, any upcoming repairs, and just normal operating expenses that would be associated with any fleet vehicle.
All right, are there any questions before we take a motion?
I'd like to, yes, Mr. Chair. Sheriff Hughes, I'd like to clarify for our listeners, because the documents I found to be a little bit confusing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a donation. We are not purchasing or financing this vehicle, correct?
This is 100% a donation. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, does not take a roll call vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right.
Thank you. The second item is the purchase of a drone through using some of the funds that we got from our state grant when the budget was passed by the General Assembly, signed into law by the governor. This drone will be used. It's got night vision, thermal imaging. It will be deployed in a number of different situations: search and rescue missions, tactical missions, area crime scene photographs, and other situations. Once again, this is going to be money that was used, specifically procured for or approved for our office for search and rescue equipment. And this will be the purchase of one drone.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, do I have a
So
motion?
move.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? The motion is for budget amendment for $8,967. Hearing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes. Sheriff, anything to share with us this evening?
Well, probably in the future I'll come before you just to talk about some of the things that we were able to accomplish this year, but I did want to touch on one tonight, and that is the heroin and opioid epidemic that we've been dealing with in regards to overdoses. For this year in the county, they are down, and they were down by a significant amount. Deaths were down as well as a result of overdoses, and I contribute that to a number of different things, one of which the aggressive enforcement program that we've put in place in areas where we have detected through data where we've had many overdoses, and we've worked a lot of these cases backwards to find out where this poison's coming from, and we've aggressively gone after those dealers. Second is some of the programs that we have put in place throughout the county and partnerships that we form with faith-based and nonprofit organizations to help get the people that need help, that want help, the help they need, so to get them back on the right track. So we're moving in the right direction, and once again, I thank y'all for the support to my office, because with helping funding our drug investigators and these intensive investigations we do in narcotics is a big reason of why we're seeing these declines now.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for what you're doing. Any questions for the sheriff this evening?
While the sheriff's here, just a preview, both of us, Sheriff and I, will be presenting an item at your next commissioner meeting There was a bill that was passed that became effective January 1st, which now requires a psychological evaluation for any new hire, sheriff, deputy, jailer, pretty much anyone that's in the sheriff's office that's employed there.
And telecommunicators, too.
And then, of course, across the street in our telecommunicator side. So we didn't budget that because it wasn't something we saw coming. Obviously, it's been passed and it's effective now. We're going to move forward with some existing revenue, but we'll be coming to your next meeting with a budget amendment. We estimate about 40 of those through the remainder of the fiscal year. It'll again be something we'll have to budget for next year, but to go ahead and get that ball rolling. So we'll be at your next meeting with that.
Okay, all right. Anything else? All right, Sheriff, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, next item would be carts. We have Ms. Kelly Cuthrell and Mr. Roy Beeson. Good evening.
Good evening. I'll do the first one and Roy do the rest, if that's fine.
Okay.
CARTS has been awarded an additional $299,035 in 5311 CARES Act operating funds. This brings the total CARES Act rural funding to $1,455,685 with a period of performance end date of June 30th, 2023. We anticipate using the additional funds during fiscal year 2023. We are asking for authorization for the chairman to sign the agreement for the 5311 CARES Act rural grant funding total of $1,455,685, and that is your attachment 7A.
All right, before we entertain a motion, do I have any questions on the board? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to authorize the signature of this agreement with NCDOT. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, item B.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Buddy, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Happy New Year. First thing I'll be asking for is adoption of the FY 2021 SSP annual review and the updated 2022 CARTS SSP. The SSP is the Safety and Security Plan. It was initially adopted back in November of 2018, and it requires an annual review to ensure all the information is correct. It also requires from us to provide you with an annual report that includes any results of incident investigations and analysis, identification of possible hazards, conditions, results of inspections, established plans for handling future incidents, and recommendations for SSP revisions, and analysis of department involvement in the administration of the SSP. It has been reviewed annually since 2018. And this is the first time revisions have to be made. The written report has been provided along with the actual report with the edited revisions in it. The revisions are as follows. Each year the cover will reflect the actual year that the SSP is in effect. Instead of saying it was adopted on this date and the revisions, the title sheet will have the actual date that it's in effect. NCDOT has changed up their checklist and reorganized the focus areas, reducing it to 6. The previous version had 7 focus areas. They combined several items into something that's more in line with what the FTA has for their safety documents. And we updated our revenue vehicles. We did reduce revenue vehicles down to 29 in the fleet. We took away the sedans as revenue vehicles, and that's why it was previously 32, and now we're all light transit vehicle based with 29 on hand. Based on that, we're requesting the adoption of the annual report, management review, and the updated 2022.
Make a motion to adopt these.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion on the adoption of this annual review? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, and in C.
The second item I have for you this evening is requesting approval for the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. This was brought to the board last year for approval. It was the first time we brought it forward, and it was accepted. It is the way the FTA wants transit systems to package their safety information as part of their overall safety management system. NCDOT worked a lot with us on this throughout the year. They've reviewed it. We've reviewed it. We're all within FTA compliance standards. And based on that review, there are no changes to be made to this year's PTASP. So again, we're requesting approval for the 2022 PTASP to meet the FTA and NCDOT requirements.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the approval of the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. All right, Commissioners, the next item is appointments. You have there in your agenda packet the pending appointments. Are there any nominations for any of these? Hearing none, we will move to current. The first is the Voluntary Agricultural District Advisory Board. You have there Mr. Jackie Anderson from Vanceboro and Mr. Dale Dawson from Coast City.
I would go along with Jackie Anderson.
All right, we have a nomination for Jackie Anderson. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, he will be accepted by acclamation. Mr. Dale Dawson, I did make contact with him. He does desire to serve again. I think he's eligible. And I would nominate him. Are there any additional nominations from the floor? Hearing none, we will accept Mr. Dawson by acclamation. Next would be the Fireman's Relief Fund Board of Trustees, Mr. Keith Gaskins, Township 2 Tri-Community Fire. Commissioner Mark.
Yes, he's willing to serve.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Gaskins. Are there any additional nominations? Hearing none, Mr. Gaskins will be accepted by acclamation. Next would be the Coastal Carolina Regional Airport Authority, Mr. Tyrell Harris. He is for reappointment. He was first appointed in January 2019.
Motion to reappoint.
We have a nomination for Mr. Harris. Are there any additional nominations? Hearing none, he will be accepted by acclamation. Next will be the Emergency Services Board. We have the community rep here seat. This term has expired. We have not received any feedback.
I've been working with Patty on this.
All right, so you want to let's defer this one? All right, we've asked commissioners, if you will, defer until the next meeting. Hear no objection. Next item would be upcoming terms expiring in February and March. Please take note of those. Any other nominations to be brought forward? All right. Hearing none, the next item before the commissioners this evening will be a petition of citizens under general topics. Mr. Vice Chair, do we have anybody signed up?
We do not.
All right. Just as we always do, is there anybody in attendance that desiring, just sign up if you didn't have the opportunity? All right, seeing no one, we will move to the next one, would be County Attorney's Report, Mr. Eric Grady.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to start the year off right with no attorney's report.
Thank you, sir. All right, next will be the County Manager's Report, Mr. Vite.
Mr. Chairman, just wish the board a happy new year. As many of you know, I was on vacation last week and Christmas week before, so no report, but I look forward to a great new year with the board.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board for the county manager? All right, seeing none, we move to Commissioner's Report. Commissioner Mark, can we begin with you this evening?
Okay, I really have nothing to report. Wish everybody a happy new year, all my constituents. And I'm working with Jack on the trailer park.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner McCabe.
I just wish everyone have a happy new year and a prosperous one and good health.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
Just wish our constituents Happy New Year again.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Liner.
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Smith.
I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year, happy, healthy, safe, and blessed new year.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Vice Chair Booker.
Repeat that. Just happy new year.
All right. All right. Anything else to bring before the Board of Commissioners this evening? Hear none. Do I have a motion?
To move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Here I have a motion, a second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.